r/AskReddit. What's your sugar mama story? Well, I was 22 at the time. I met this gal on the interwebs, of course. We planned to meet after talking for a few weeks. She was 30. She drove out to me the first time we met. She brought food and a movie. I didn't know anything about her. We kept seeing each other. She would constantly come out to see me, but never ask me to drive to her. I didn't think anything of it. She would always get me gifts, food, tickets for sports to go with her, you name it. I couldn't match her cause I was tight on money, had a simple job, and was in the National Guard too. I did feel bad not being able to get her stuff or travel to her. I even told her that. She would smile and tell me, I don't care about that, I care about seeing you. After she said that, we ended up having sex. And let me tell ya, it was the best sex I've ever had. I got worried that might have ruined it between us. She didn't contact me for a week. I felt sad cause we had probably the best connection ever. She did text me apologizing for the disconnect in communication. Her job took her away from her means of communicating. I personally didn't care. I was glad she showed back up, lol. I finally asked her what she did for a living. Turns out she was the CEO of some multi-million business firm. When I heard that, my heart skipped a beat, and all I can ask, why me? Lol, I of course did not ask that. But for 3ish years we were basically FWBs. Every time we saw each other, she would bring me food and we would have sex. One day, she invited me camping. I met her entire family. Nicest people I've ever met. They all knew about me. They didn't judge anything whatsoever. You knew her family was rich just by looking at them. Glorious camping experience ever. Her family bought me a brand new vehicle. They bought me a house. They even got me a very high paying job. It just couldn't get any better. But it did. This woman confessed her love for me. I was already in love with her as well. We made it official, and we have been together for 9 months now with a kid on the way. Finally, something I can contribute to. Back when I spent a ton of time on MMOs, Guild Wars 2 specifically, I joined a guild and became friendly with everyone. Met a married couple, a bit older, and they both had I think 10 plus years on me from what they told me. Eventually they broke up because the guy was apparently being a controlling asshole to her. I kinda saw it, since his humor in our guild chat was asshole why. Anyway, she was the only one that logged in at 3 AM one night, and we just ended up talking more than usual and getting closer. I was actually just trying to comfort her, but since I was also recently single we were kind of just drawn to each other. She visited my city for a week and asked me to show her around to the best places for us to spend our time together. I didn't mind paying and suggested stuff within my price range, college student at the time, but she ended up convincing me to try some more expensive things I never considered doing, since she'd be covering everything while telling me not to worry and thanking me for being there for her to keep her from feeling a little less lonely. It felt really weird because I didn't want to feel like a gold digger lol, but she eventually convinced me that it was fine. Of course we had a lot of sex throughout the week, in a really nice suite at a really nice hotel, ate at restaurants way out of my price range, went clubbing with our own table. It was definitely an eventful week. We already agreed on nothing being serious, we were just enjoying being in the moment, and it was totally fine. She flew back, life went on. Eventually we got caught up in our own lives and stopped playing online as much, which meant our communication started winding down as well. It's actually been years since we've last spoken, but I hope she's doing well. I've been working at a restaurant for over a year and a half now, and the same elderly couple comes in at least 3 times per week. They're both probably in their 70s at least. The woman is always in nice fur coats and has different jewelry all the time, but is kind of losing herself to her age. I don't think she has dementia quite yet, but she's not quite all there anymore. The man is constantly leading her around, walking her to their regular booth, helping her order, etc. Found out recently the poor old guy lives in his car. Basically this woman pays for him to have a few meals with her each week in exchange for his companionship. It's kind of like a weird elderly escort deal they've got going on. It's sad, but in a weird way kind of sweet, as I've noticed he gets very protective over her and seems to genuinely care for her. He keeps all of her receipts for her, makes sure she gets exactly what she wants, and always makes sure she gets her 1.5 scoops of vanilla ice cream for dessert. How the guy survives living mostly in his car in Minnesota winters is probably solely due to help from this woman. Met a 30-year-old widow on Xbox when I was 19. She said she played Xbox to pass the day because she was financially set for life when her husband passed and wanted to make some Xbox friends. We start playing more and more until I couldn't keep up because my controller and headset broke. She asked for my address, and after a week, I got a brand new controller and headset. I couldn't thank her enough and asked what I could do in return, to which she replied to just keep playing with her. Over the next few years, she occasionally buys me new games when they came out, and even a few collector's editions if I wanted them. Eventually, we drifted apart because I couldn't find time play with my school and work schedule. I still miss her and occasionally try and find her online again, but can't remember her gamer tag or Facebook. She will always be one of my best gaming buddies I've ever had. In my early 20s I met an older woman around mid-40s in a bar. She was drinking alone, and I stood by her to order a drink. She leaned over and gave me all kinds of compliments about my body. I said thanks, and that she looked great too. She gave me her business card, Realtor, and told me to text her around 2 AM. I did. She rolled up to my place in a super nice Benz. Woke up and she was gone. Next weekend she texted me an address and to be there at 8 PM and to clear my entire weekend for her. I did. She had a really nice 8-bedroom house. She was wild, taught me a thing or two and let me explore all kinds of shit I didn't even know I was interested in. The next weekend, same thing. I showed up and she had so much stuff for me. Really nice high-end clothes and shoes. She also bought all kinds of kinky toys for me to use on her too. She made me into a half-assed dom, and I would tide her up and do just about anything I wanted to. We had a good time. Then she fell off the face of the earth. I don't regret it one bit. She was really nice and spoiled the shit out of me. She made me food and would bring it to me while I was in bed. Massaged my body damn near every day. She would sleep in a different room, and between the sexual times we would have long lengthy conversations about anything and everything. I was seeing her for about 2 months. She was 10 years my senior. We worked together and there was always those certain looks throughout the year. She was going through a divorce with well-to-do architect and were previously bonded over depressive situations we were going through. It wasn't until I handed my resignation in and told the staff I was moving states did it kick off. She said we should go get a drink one night. Nothing happened. Then she invited me round to her place. 3 awesome kids. Anything I wanted booze-wise. Food. Great cook. Meals. And drinks out too. Very in shape and we absolutely bonded very well in the bedroom too. It was almost perfect. Except for me having sneak out at the crack of dawn before the kids woke up. This continued for about 7 weeks. I had my car packed and ready to go, and we spent one last night together before I moved. We said our goodbyes, and I drove off. Last I've heard from her as per the arrangement / her request. It could have worked out I felt. Missy app NX. This happened to me a couple years ago. I was back home from college on a break and matched with this girl on Tinder. She seemed pretty cool and we texted for about 3 days, then decided to meet up and get some sushi. She came over to my house first and parked in front of my house, my mom's house, for like 15 minutes and texted me she was too shy to come in. Eventually she walked up. We got sushi, then went back to my place. One thing led to another and pretty soon we were doing the horizontal hokey pokey in my bedroom. She stayed the night and we hung out and got breakfast the next morning. She said she had to go to the mall to return some stuff and asked if I wanted to tag along. I said sure, why not. We go to the mall and she's returning some clothes or something, so I'm just looking around the store. I find this sick ass Patagonia jacket and I was checking it out. When she was done she saw me checking it out and asked if I wanted it. I said hell yeah, but it's like $250 and she said she'd buy it for me. I just laughed. She took it off the rack and went to the counter. I thought she was just really committed to the bit until she pulls out a manila folder fucking full of $100 bills. My jaw dropped and I probably made a weird sound. She just looked at me and winked. We left the mall and I had my dope ass jacket all bagged up. I asked her about the money and she just said, "Don't worry about it." We had been talking for a couple days and I knew a lot about her at this point and knew she worked a close to minimum wage job. I just let it go. She drives me back to my house and before I get out of the car she says hold on and pulls out the folder. I ask what she's doing and she just throws $600 into my bag. I felt weird and tried to give it back. She said don't worry about it, I have a bunch. She opened up her purse and pulled out like 6 or 7 of these manila folders. Eventually she convinced me to keep the money and I was just like fuck it, I'm a hooker now I guess. I go back to my school and she goes back to hers. Over the next few months she would randomly drop anywhere from $100 to $500 in my Venmo every week or so. We continued texting and she just kept buying me shit. If I mentioned being hungry she'd order a pizza or something for me and my roommates. If I mentioned I needed/wanted anything I could expect to see it in an Amazon box on my porch a couple days later. Shit was tight. I go back home again on my next break and decide we should meet up again. This time we skipped the sushi and went straight to doing the old bippity boppity boo. Again, things go great. She says the night and we watch a movie the next morning. She eventually decides it's time to leave and puts 10 $100 bills on my coffee table. At this point I know she won't take no for an answer, so I just take the loot and say thanks. She drives off and waves bye to me. Everything seemed normal. A few hours pass and I go to text her, but it doesn't go through. Weird but whatever. More time passes, but my texts still won't go through. I tried to message her on Snapchat and it looks like she deleted me or blocked me or something. Turns out she blocked me on every form of social media. I was pretty confused. I just played it cool and tried not be a weirdo and like call her a bunch or anything. Break ends and I go back to school again. Still haven't heard a word from this chick. Then at like 2 AM one night I get a call from a blocked number. Shocker, it's her. I asked her what was going on and she just shushed me. She was whispering, but not like sexy whispering. She sounded super serious and a little scared even. She just told me that I can't tell anyone about our interaction together, her name, or anything. She even asked me to delete pictures she sent me of herself. I ask what the hell is going on and she just tells me she has to go. I hung up the phone and never heard from her again. Still got the Patagonia though. I was at a dive bar and this lady comes in wearing yoga pants and a tank/sports bra. It was a Tuesday night. She was beautiful. Looked like a hot suburban mom early mid 40s. Had no idea what she was doing there. We got to chatting and it turns out she was in the middle of a divorce and had been moving out of their house all day. We exchange numbers and I go to her house later that night. Door opens and it's on without introduction. Through the night and later the next day, she keeps making comments about how she can't believe she's with such a younger guy. I look young for my age, so I assume that she misunderstands and I say, "You keep saying that. I don't think I'm as young as you think," and she asked how old I was. I told her 33 and she said that's what she thought. She was 55. I was totally shocked, but also thought it was pretty cool. Over the next year, we had an ongoing relationship. She never cared or got jealous about who I was dating or seeing. We would even talk about sex with other people while we made love, which was pretty hot because neither of us were possessive and it was about mutual enjoyment. She was very adventurous sexually and I felt I could open up about anything and be truly open with her without judgment. We would go out to restaurants and she would always pay. She paid for us to take one small trip for a week together out of town, which was awesome. She always talked about how she had an older man set her up in business when she was young and how she'd like to do the same for me. And we would talk about plans for what that would look like. She even suggested I move into her spare bedroom and be roommates, saying she wouldn't be jealous if I brought a girl home. I thought that was a bit too complicated and would work only in theory, so I respectfully declined. I moved off and she found someone her own age and we talk less and less all the time, but I keep her updated on my life. I think of her fondly and often and tell her I love her. I consider her a very special woman to me and she still inspires me. This happened in Tokyo around 5 or 6 years ago. Met a client at work when I was 26 or 27. She was 32 or 33. She was really cute, very smart and educated, and we got on very well together. She was a bit of a train geek. She liked riding trains. Fairly common in Japan, but rare for a woman. She had a lot of cute quirks like that. She could tell you the make and model of every pantograph on every train in operation in Japan. Anyone who knows Japanese politics has heard her name before. I didn't know who she was when we first met, but my boss later on told me to treat her like a VIP at all times. Anyway, our work project wrapped up, and we decided to go out for a bite at a nearby restaurant. She tells me she needs help preparing for an interview at a very famous company for a very unique role that they would essentially be creating just for her. I tell her I'd be happy to help her with it. I didn't have any ulterior motives. I genuinely liked her and wanted her to succeed. We met up again to do the interview prep and one more final practice after that. She invited me to play darts with her after we'd finished, since she apparently enjoyed darts and I'd never played before. We went out to a darts bar in the early evening, and somehow we ended up playing a game where the loser of the game had to drink tequila shots. She mopped the floor with me, but we both started doing shots until well past the last trains home. Eventually we wound up going to an internet cafe to spend the rest of the night, but things progressed pretty quickly. She got touchy-feely, and we decided to get out of there and go to a hotel together. And so began our relationship. She turned out to be richer than God. She would buy all kinds of stuff for me, would never let me pay for dates, even though I was making very good money for my age, wanted to take me on all kinds of trips around Asia. She bought me some very nice watches and clothes which I still have and cherish to this day. She had a Benz and an Aston Martin and some other cars just lying around in her parking spaces in the middle of Tokyo. Probably would have married her if it weren't for some complications with her marital status. I found out about that after a few weeks of dating. It was a bit of a tragedy really. It turned out she was in a terrible loveless marriage and had a young child. I found out about that way after we'd already been going out a while. At first it made me uncomfortable to be in that situation, but I started to understand that she was trapped in it, and due to societal pressure she had no real way of divorcing. Neither of them wanted to continue their marriage and both of them were seeing other people, but due to their very high profile in the Japanese media a divorce was out of the question. We ended up breaking up when we realized having a kid together would cause irreversible damage to her political career and that a divorce to marry a white guy would be the end for her professionally. That really sucked, but it was the truth. She was the best girlfriend I've ever had. If I'd met her 3 years earlier I'm sure my life would have been completely different now. Not for the money, could not care less about that. I've never met someone I connected with so well. Really the one that got away. 6 or so years ago I was just out of college in Southern California, living with my grandpa, and asked out a Chinese grad student after meeting her at work. On our second date, she picked me up in a shiny black Audi, said her parents leased it for her. We went to a Chinese restaurant. I had paid for food on our first date and just assumed I would keep on doing so, despite making $15 hour at the time, because I'm a red-blooded Korean American man. So when she started ordering lobster, duck, and enough food to feed 8 I started getting a bit nervous. The check came, and I reached for it, but she snatched it away, got out her wallet, and pulled out 3 Benjamins, like it was nothing. And when she did that, I couldn't help but catch a glimpse of the stack of crisp bills, all which seemed to have a similar pattern W/Benjamin Franklin's bald head peeking out the top. She had to have had at least 2 G's in there. "I don't like going to the bank, so I just get it all at once," she said. I had way less in my name than she had in her wallet, LMAO. Anyway, she paid for the $200 plus meal and let me have the leftovers. Had my meals set for the next week. From then on we alternated paying for dates. My meals would be $sign or $sign on Yelp. Hers $sign plus. She eventually would pay for Disneyland tickets, lacquer games, and some fantastic meals before 5 months later she graduated, her student visa expired, and she went back to China. She was really down to earth too. Once we went to a spot near downtown, and she street parked in Skid Row. I advised against it, motioning to the homeless encampments, but she said it was no big deal. Chill. Her English was good enough to hold conversation, but once we were lying in bed, and it was kind of a lull, and she said out of the blue, "I'm funnier in Chinese," which I thought was hilarious, but also sad. Maybe because of that, we didn't text much outside of planning our weekends. I sometimes wondered whether she had 2 or 3 boyfriends she was just cycling through lol. She didn't have Facebook, only Weibo, or some other Chinese social media. I texted her a few years ago, but the normally blue bubbles were now green. Still, we had a lot of fun, and she helped get me through those post-grad broke-ass blues. Hope she's doing alright. I got a free personal training session at Equinox gym. This woman working out there must have been working the same routine I was doing, because during the session, we ran into each other non-stop at the same benches/machines, joking about it a ton, eventually then chatting her up the end of the session. Super pretty and fit 41-year-old, incredibly intelligent, with her own private practice doing sex therapy. We seemed to click. I'm 26. After my session, the trainer/salespeople allowed me to stay and keep working out on my own. Then this therapist lady makes her way back to me prob, since the trainer was gone, and we continue talking and exchange numbers to get together sometime. I figure what the hell, may as well try for this one. No more than 5 replies into our first text conversation she straight up tells me I'm cute, and she's always busy, so she's looking for a casual hookup relationship with me. I tell her oh how convenient, I'm in the same boat. Luckily she lives pretty close by too. So I've been going to hers about once a week for the last 2 months or so, just to have sex and hang out. Oh, and she's also really into the zodiac and tarot cards, and she likes to analyze me, and eventually wants to read my cards. IDK whatever, small price to pay, and TBH it actually is pretty interesting, and sorta sexy when she talks about it. Now this wasn't a sugar mama type relationship at first, but we started going out to dinner just for fun, and even though it's not date why really, she's paid for everything since. Then it evolved into buying me some nice things, nothing too personal like clothes, but she's gotten me some nice bottles of wine, scotch, a candle she liked, yeah no nice gift type things. Well this week these gifts just went a step further. She's going to Barbados in February, and after jokingly saying I'd love to go, she booked me a ticket because, well, she says she felt like it. I'm also an avid surfer, so she wants me to surf all morning while she sleeps and then basically bang her on different parts of the island. I'm dropping $0. She's adamant about not having a relationship outside of a casual one though. For numerous reasons it isn't for her, and having spent enough time with her I think she's genuine, and I believe her. She definitely likes to spend money on me, but not in frivolous ways like more clear-cut sugar mamas. Still, I think the situation. This is a story I got secondhand, but it fits the theme. We were lying in bed talking about our pasts, and he told me about a job he'd had just after graduating from high school working at a corner store the summer before he went to college. The owner had a car accident and became partially disabled. The owner asked if he would like to earn some extra money working around his house while he recovered. He said things went well for about a month until one day, the store owner was gone, and his wife came out to the garage in an open bathrobe. At first he just kind of blushed and turned away, but after a week or so of her turning up half naked in different spots around the house, he took her up on the offer. He said the owner suddenly doubled his salary at the store, but he only had to go there once a week and the rest of the time he was to report to the house where his salary also doubled, and they bought him a new used car. He said except for his one day at the store, he never did any work, except sexing the wife, and suddenly he also had enough to cover his tuition. He went to a local college and kept that job for 2 years. The owner, with rehab, moved from a wheelchair to crutches to a cane, and one day called the young man's side and told him they were selling the house and the store and moving to Florida. He told me the old man also said, "I want you to know you saved my marriage. You think I didn't know you were sleeping with her this whole time? It was my idea. I love my wife, and I'd do anything for her, but that accident changed things for us. You're young and just wanted some pussy and a car and a few extra dollars for school and some money in your pocket. An older man would have come in here and had the house and the store and my wife too. We are moving on, but you don't have to worry about tuition. Just keep on with school, young man." He said his tuition stayed paid until he graduated, but he never saw the old man or his wife again. Signed into my alt just to comment on this. I'm currently in an FWB type thing with an older woman. I'm 23, she's 37, with some sugar mama element to it. Mostly that she buys me nice dinners and drinks and I give her a good time in bed playing a Switch. We met on Bumble. She says she wasn't originally looking at guys my age, but her friend messed with the age thing without telling her, and she matched with me. She's a professor/researcher, and I'm a grad student, not her student, but in a similar field at the same university, so we have a lot in common. She didn't actually realize I was that much younger until we'd already been texting for a while and had a date planned, but she went through with it anyway and the sexual tension was there from the start. I was pretty nervous the first time, but she has some dominant tendencies, especially in bed, so I think she found it cute. We fucked 4 times that night and haven't slowed down much since. We aren't exclusive or anything. She goes out with other guys her age and I go out with other girls my age. She actually encourages it. She even likes hearing me talk about whenever I get laid with a younger girl. It's kind of a crazy whirlwind thing, especially since I was a virgin less than a year ago, but it's fun. Would highly recommend. Although I feel like, if I ever get famous or run for office or anything, it's going to get found out somehow and scandalize my entire extended family to death. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.